Hey, welcome to another podcast. This one's a little bit different because I've got my son Jude, and I got Jay Smitty, as we call him, or Josh Smith, one of our worship leaders here, and we're gonna touch a little bit on the controversial subject of music.
Ooh.
I thought one of them were going to take it, but they denied my. I launched them the ball, and they just let it fall. Only Jude was good with sports, not Josh or I. Actually, Josh was a swimmer. Evidently, that's a sport of some sort.
Yeah, paid for college.
However, I can't say much because I not only didn't go to college, I didn't play sports. So, boom, that's out of the way. Listen, music, you can't go back to the beginning of music because you cannot find anywhere, including the Bible, the creation of music, because music was built by God in Satan, actually. So I'm going somewhere with this. I didn't tell him ahead of time on purpose. The Bible says that music was created in Satan the day he was created, right? Came from God, right? God created it. And God created this music to worship him. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but Ezekiel 28:8 talks about it's basically Satan being shot down, but it also to hell. But it also talks all about how he was created, right? Like Satan was majestic, right? Like he shined of music and like breathed music, and so. That's, where it was created, and why it was created was to worship Jesus, or God, rather. Jesus wasn't around yet, but you know what I mean. It was he would go before God, and the most angelic music would come out of him. That being said, that's what it was created for. So therefore, if Satan was created to do music, that's why Satan has such a stronghold with music, right, in the world. So I'm setting this up, and then we can obviously all have a conversation about it. And I love this because Josh been a worship leader for how long?
Over 20 years.
Almost 30
years.
Yeah, almost 30 years. Jude being in
I've
music.
listened to music for almost 20 years. So
You're going to have a lot of laughing because Jude thinks he's funny, and evidently so do Josh and I. But no, Jude's been in both the Christian music realm, the secular music realm, all the music realm, and still is. So it's going to be a pretty good balance. So all that to say, that's where music was created.
yeah, it was obviously God created Satan. Satan created music, and it's very, very powerful, obviously, and can be a tool used for good and for evil, just like most things.
Right.
And so it's something that is a very big responsibility for anyone that does music, no matter who and what they're doing. And so I think before we get into more my realm of everything, I want to maybe go over to Josh. He can kind of explain what kind of bounce off of what my dad was saying, but a little more first before we dig a little deeper.
Dig a little deeper.
I love what you just said about the influence that music can have. It is one of the most powerful tools, I'll say, on planet Earth. And I say tool intentionally. I think of a tool like a hammer.
Right.
You can use a hammer to build a house for a person who has no place to live.
That's good.
But you can also use a hammer to break a window.
Right.
And I think music can be used in both of those ways too. You can build a house
Absolutely.
for someone to reside in that's full of all the trappings of a house. It's full of warmth, it's full of security, it's full of shelter, or you can use the tool of music to destroy and to tear down. And music is so incredibly wonderfully diverse in its sounds, its tones, its lyrics.
Yeah.
And I think that's because we have such a wonderfully diverse creator in our Father God, that music, just like our Lord, is not limited to one particular sound or one particular style, because I believe that the voice of God is not limited to one language or to one sound. So music reflects its creative roots, and that God created music. He created Lucifer to be the archangel of music.
Right.
Lucifer didn't play or perform music. It came out of him.
He was music.
And that is such a wild thought, that he was the instrument. He didn't play the instrument. He was the instrument.
I would love to actually, Josh, see, like, I mean, I'm sure there's some artist scripts, but like to actually see what he looked like and what he sounded like. Hopefully there's some pictures or something in heaven, because I want to see it. Like he had to have been majestic, right? If you can't tell me that here on earth, even though we're in the 2020s, you can't tell me that here on earth our music is better than what God originally created, right?
Oh, no.
And so I that's one of the things I can't wait to get to heaven, just to hear the sound.
Yeah. And obviously his sound and his music had influence, because 1/3 of the angels fell with him. So that is an interesting picture for us about the power and the influence of music. If the music that exuded from Lucifer had enough influence to make 1/3 of the beings that could physically behold the Lord with their very eyes. See, we worship and serve a God that we have yet to see with our natural eyes. The angels that fell with Lucifer and Lucifer himself, they saw God with their own eyes. And yet that music that exuded from Lucifer, it had that much power to pull away 1/3 of the created beings that had beheld the face of God. It shows you that
that's wild.
The power and the influence of music, it will even go deeper than our natural eyes.
Yeah. I mean, God created all of this, and I know we're going way back, and we're not going to stay here for long. I want to move on to more, local, but I want people to understand what we're talking about here, right? And so obviously God created everything by speaking it. So therefore, and music is speaking, whether it's, and there's all kinds of different kinds of music, right? We're not getting into genres yet. We may get into that down the road here, but God, when God created things, he spoke it, the Bible says, into existence. Therefore, being we're created like God, when we speak, we're creating things out of
absolutely,
the existence, the space and time, right? Like, so it's very important, the words of our mouth. It's very important what we put in, right? Is what comes out of us.
Mm-hmm.
What you bring into your life is what you become. What you behold is what you become. What you're listening to, what you're letting. Pastor has a saying, whoever has your heart, right, has your mind, right? Like that's it, meaning whoever can capture your heart can lead you anywhere. So what we intake is very, very important.
Yeah, it's just another influence, just like anything else. And I think you have the choice just like anyone. It's just like friends. It's just like anything else, but it has almost more power because you can be completely by yourself and listen to music, and it's not peer pressure. It's you can choose whatever you want to listen to.
Yeah.
So music is extremely powerful, and for people like me and Josh, we have and we're on different realms, but we have the same calling in the fact of we have different callings, but we have the same level of calling as the responsibility we have to hold. And I don't think Josh is going to get to heaven as a worship leader, and God's going to be way more proud of him than he is of me because I am doing what God called me to do. Right. I think we're both going to get looked at and say, I'm proud of you, my good and faithful servant. And that's just that, my good and faithful servant. I'm faithful to do what God is calling me to do. Because if I wanted to do what Josh was doing, be a worship leader, and I would be stepping away from what God has called me to do. And you
would probably fail.
And I would probably, I'd probably fail.
You might be talented, but you're probably going to fail because that's not what God called you to do.
Or I would succeed and be miserable. Well, so it's just,
same difference, I think.
Yeah, right? it's. So I just mean from the fact of like, there's a lot of people that maybe are I think in both realms, there's a lot of people that are worship leaders that shouldn't be worship leaders, and Josh would attest to that because they're called to elsewhere. And there's a lot of people that are elsewhere and should be worship leaders. And so I think it's just a calling, just like anything else. And so you just have to be very fruitful. But the difference is that it's almost much like there's pros and cons to both. Obviously, where a lot of people fall in my side of things is that with Josh, if Josh were to get up there and make it about himself, it would be a lot. People would be very confused. They'd be like, all right, dude, sit down.
I'd be confused.
Like, what are you doing, dude?
That's
it's not about you.
Politely.
If I get up and make it all about myself.
I'm pretty sure that's how it is now, though.
Yeah, come on.
No, but Josh can get up, and it's obviously one direction. And so if I get up and make it all about myself, then it's normal because that's the realm that I'm going into. So I have to be very cautious on where I step into. And the difference is, too, is I'm going to be places that Josh and my dad will never be. And I will be like Josh tells me this all the time, you're going to be the only Jesus that a lot of people ever see. I'm going to be in music venues with gay flags and bars and crazy influences on all kinds of stuff. But I'm going to be up there being me. And I've been asked the question, like, there's something different. Why are you so happy? Why are you so this? Why are you so that? And I even talked about it. I talked about it in my music. I talked about it from stage. I am an influence that can go way beyond anything my grandpa or my dad will ever be.
Right.
So which is a extremely huge responsibility. And if I didn't have the foundation that I had, I would be much more nervous about it. Yeah. But I'm very grateful for this foundation that I have. So.
And you were raised that way, like we're friends with a lot of, Christian artists. We're friends with a lot of non-Christian artists. God's put us in a pretty good, spot. And so, you were raised in both going to the worship concerts.
Oh, yeah.
The Christian crazy concerts
and the Crowders and all that.
And going to the TFKs.
I was just about to say that. I wrote that down to talk about today is I remember, and they're like a huge influence on when I do, obviously like influence when I was a kid, that's all we listened to. But I remember my dad would take us to 1,000-Foot Krutch concerts, and I would have to cover my ears for an hour for whoever was opening because I wasn't allowed to listen to that because it was a bunch of garbage. What I'm saying is that then TFK got up in front of 4,000 or 5,000 people and talked about saying all of their songs and talked about his testimony and reached all those people that are never going to be in a church building.
Yeah, I actually remember we went to several of those, but I actually remember one of those where Trevor got up and said, literally was like, hey, if you could put your drink down for just a minute, I want to tell you why we're here. And not long, wasn't a 4-hour message, but literally took 60 seconds to say there is a higher power and we're here to tell you. That's the only reason we're here is to tell you that there is a higher power. His name is Jesus, and you need to meet him. And you got drunks in the back like, yeah, I love Jesus. Yeah. And it was great. But yeah, like the influence, people have to realize that although music was created to worship, at the same time, it can be used in other areas. It's not bad.
I think authenticity is very okay. And obviously in the Bible is I think it's okay to write about your life in a lot of ways because the Bible is life's instruction manual, and you see a lot of people in the Bible talk about their life. You see David
the whole Bible
open
is biblical experiences, right?
About people's lives.
Yeah.
So when I write about my life, about different things like that, then I think it is totally okay because I live a clean life, number one, and I don't ever go across the line of what I believe my biblical morals to be. But also David opened up about heartbreak. You see that in Psalms, and you see Song of Solomon's. There's a lot of great verses I read in premarital counseling, and Song of Solomon's all about love. And so you see that all throughout the Bible, not just in those. You see, I mean, there's all kinds of love stories. I mean, the Bible itself is a love story.
It's communication.
Jesus is a love story.
Yeah, it's communication.
So what I'm saying is, like, me being authentic about the relationships that I've been or the different things that I've experienced with my friendships or different stuff is just me being open. And it would be no different than me telling that story just on a video or writing a poem about it or anything else. I'm not violating any biblical rules by talking about my life on a song. And in fact, authenticity is a magnet for people, and they see it and like, oh wow, I'm dealing with that same thing.
Right.
Excuse me. But what's crazy about that is it almost puts the guard down for a lot of people to be like, oh wow, I can relate with this person. And, you know, like the cool youth pastor tries to relate with all of the youth or whatever. And, oh, I used to do that when I was a kid. You're Game Boy, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, what? But at the same point, they're trying to.
Hey, whoa. I had a Game Boy.
So did I.
I feel personally attacked right now.
Yeah, but what
I don't think he cares.
What I'm saying is they try to relate because they know, like, trying to relate with that person, those youth are going to actually break those walls down and be like, oh, this person is just like me.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, me talking about that in a lot of my music has been very beneficial, and it's created avenues for me to talk to people that my dad and my grandpa or Josh will never be able to talk to about. And also it's gotten me into rooms of people of extremely high influence that I never thought I would be in. And I have influence with people of influence. So many of my friends are extremely successful now, and it's so sick to see the same people that I watched, you know, eat ramen noodles in college and then work, you know what I mean? So it's just so amazing to see. And I am in rooms with people like that all the time, and I'm just so grateful. And sometimes I forget that because a lot of them have just been my friends, or some, you know, there's been people where I grew up listening to the person and I walked in the room and I'm like, holy cow, that's them. That's crazy.
Right.
And I know it's because of this gift that God's given me. But at the same time, I have to realize that it's always, it's never not a responsibility.
Right.
And what I do off the court is just as important as what I do on the court, if that makes sense. It's just like who I influence and what I talk about, and am I living up to how I should be living up to on the songs and off the songs. Because I remember, I mean, there's all kinds of Christian artists that I've been in the room with that have said crazy things and have drank and smoked and done all kinds of wild things, and you look at that and you're like, that's crazy. I never would have expected that. Or like, also I've been friends with sons of very famous Christian singers that
or pastors' kids
or anything growing up. Like, I know I've been around people of influence my whole life, and I think that's almost like been a training ground of where I'm to now, because fame doesn't impress me in any way.
Right.
Obviously, my grandpa has a little bit of, like, you know, there's a lot of people that know my grandpa. There's a lot of people that know my dad. I'm friends with Josh Smith. I know all kinds of famous people. No, but I'm just saying that because it's not impressive to me, and I think, like, because I know at the end of the day they're obviously just still people, and you can say that, but then people will still act differently. I don't act differently because it's no different to me. And any kind of fame that I have, I almost I brush it off because I forget that it's.
Well, our whole family is literally WYSIWYG. That's a.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, that's an IT.
Can
that's
we look
an
that
IT.
up?
No, yeah.
Derek, can we look that up? Fact
check me on this. WYSIWYG. Ready? What? There you go. What you see is what you get.
Oh, yeah.
And that is our family, right? Like, what you see is what you get. Josh can attest to this. Many people, we're not.
It or not,
definitely
attest to it.
Well, I mean, Josh is a great example because not only has he, volunteered. I hate that word, but not only has he volunteered, for conference, he served the, Doc and the team and us and Invasion and helped create Invasion, and he's, helped us take Invasion from what it was to what it is today. But not only all of that, but he's been in our homes. He's lived on a bus with me. He's been in hotel rooms. He's, been at all of that. So he can attest to what you see with our family is what you get.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, it's, Jude, you're talking, influence and all that. It's kind of it's really more of an atmosphere thing, right? Sound is an atmosphere. And I like what you said, that it influences you no matter where you're at, because if you get in the car by yourself, which most of us drive to work or to the store or whatever by ourselves, what you tune into is what's going to minister to you.
Well, even it will minister to you whether you choose it or not, too.
Correct.
So you walk through the mall, you get it in a rental car, and the hit radio station is on, and you hear 45 seconds of it before you turn it off. It's going to influence you.
It's one of those things. It's going to minister to you.
Yeah, no matter what. And so I think
it's an atmosphere thing.
Yeah.
And so I heard Phil Driscoll say this, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, which, if you don't know Phil Driscoll, look him up. Probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, worship leader, pastor, man of God, minister, whatever title you want to give it. Probably the greatest musician, spiritually I've ever been in the room.
I exalt thee, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the song I exalt thee. Everyone's
so
heard that.
Look, I exalt thee. Look him up. Phenomenal man of God, minstrel, the whole 9 yards. But my point to that is, you can pay me later, brother Phil. I love you. You're my good friend. That was pretty good build up. He said, if you don't like your world, change the sound in your world and your world will change. Then he said, as the sound goes in your world, so goes your world. And I that hit home to me, because especially when we've dealt with different things in our life, Jude, when you were a baby, few months old, we had you in the hospital over a respiratory deal. People know our backstory with Malachi being ill and mom having, cancer and being healed of it, grandma being healed of it, Jaden, your cousin, dying on the side of a pool and coming back to life, all of these things, London, having her throat slit open and all of that. And now we're good, because reason I'm bringing all that up is because we would change our atmosphere in that moment, our conversation. Music is conversation.
Yeah.
So, when we're talking to God, or when we're wanting to, to be in God, we need to get that worship in. When we're crying out to God, I'm not going to throw names out there, but don't throw your favorite rap music on, from so-and-so who was at a party last night.
Yeah.
Get soaked up into the presence of God, and that atmosphere will change that, and
100%.
will do that. But it's a communication thing, meaning, God did not create us. When we walked into this room before we did this podcast, we were like, hey, what's up? I gave you a hug. I'm sure I wasn't there when you and Josh greeted, but I'm sure it was a high five or a hug or something.
It was
an embrace,
a
long embrace. Josh did a message for the ladies conference a couple of years ago that literally said you have to give your wife what was it? How
20-second
long?
hug.
A 20-second hug. And so ever since then, we've decided that
give your wife
Josh
a 20-second hug.
15, 20-second hugs. So he stands there like okay, it's good. Anyways.
No, can I talk about the point you're making?
Well, I didn't get there yet, but go ahead.
Okay, well, to break off of add to what he's saying.
Add to what I haven't said yet.
But what you did say already is made me think of it, is he's saying, he said, when you're going through things is when the time you need to change your atmosphere. What I've noticed in my family, and he'll even attest to this too. And I don't know if this is where he's going to, and I'm just gonna steal your points here, but he always has the right atmosphere going. And
Who is he?
You.
Oh, okay, thanks.
My mom. My
mom is huge
on
atmosphere.
Huge.
Yeah.
Atmosphere is just influence on who do you have on the house, who are you listening to, not just preachers, but also music and everything else. And so, but not just also that, but what we say in the family is a huge part of the atmosphere. If I were to ever say anything that would break mom's atmosphere code, I would feel it on the back of my neck. And so I say that to say
like group chats every day.
Yes. So we always have the right atmosphere going. And something my grandpa says all the time is, you know, when you start going through trouble, that's a really hard time to start opening your Bible and getting ready. Like when you need healing, it's a really hard time to start reading your healing scriptures. Yeah. You should already be prepared.
That's correct. That's
and
good.
So
you should already be prepared.
And so what I'm saying is if you always have the right atmosphere, you will always be prepared. And I grew up in always the right atmosphere.
When you get into a fight, that's not the time to go to your car and find a club or a knife or a gun, right?
Wow.
Really no, I'm just saying. Like a bad guy comes in
I don't have a club
and points
or a bar knife fight.
I have all of that in my truck. So
well, what does Pastor say? Proper planning prevents poor
Derek,
performance.
why don't we need a gun in here, right?
Yeah.
We need a gun prop here because everyone knows I'm into guns.
Think Josh
Anyways,
repeat what he just said.
Go ahead.
Pastor tells us all the time, proper planning prevents poor performance. So if you plan ahead, it's amazing. Right. If you have a battle strategy ahead of time, it's amazing how the battles aren't as frequent or as aggressive because you're ready to go at any point in time. Yeah. If a burglar is going to scan a neighborhood for what house to burgle, it's probably
another fact check. Another fact check. Burgle.
That seems
it's not going to be yours because you're prepared, right?
Exactly.
They are not coming to my house. I am known in my neighborhood.
You're known,
sure.
But also your house displays the evidence that
it
you're ready and you're prepared.
It does.
Yeah.
And I think our lives can display the evidence that we're ready and prepared too.
By
what atmosphere are we immersing ourselves? We don't want to get burgled.
I'm going to throw my wife under the bus, and I'm going to get beat for it like I do all the time.
Oh, wait, hold on. Just come in. Does burgle mean burglarize though?
A burglar burgles. You're welcome.
Oh my goodness.
Gosh.
Hey, burgles. There's your new word.
Remember that swimming that you made fun of me that paid for college? You're welcome.
Dude, you can have burgle any day you want, dude.
That's
Congratulations.
Great. That's great. Anyways, you throwing your I want to get back to
throwing my wife
throwing your wife under. No, because when she hears this, she's going to be very grateful.
She's working her way through SMTI right now, and proper planning prevents poor performance is like in the first year. And so I tease her all the time just on like the small things. If she is shockingly somehow running late for church or anything like that, which
none of our wives do that. What are you talking about?
She loves it when I say this, but all I say is pee, and she's like, stop, and I'm like pee.
Got to get all five of them out.
And I have to get all five of them out. She goes, I know it, and then beats me up. And then, but I just say that to say like it's not just in. I brought it over into the family that I started with my wife because I've seen how impactful it is and how important it is to always be prepared for all of that. And especially now being the head of my family, and when I start having kids, it's going to be the same thing, and they're going to know it before they know SMTI. And it's just a key factor of life. I don't know if factor is a word, but you get what I'm saying. That it is crucial to be prepared for everything. Yeah. And pray for the best, plan for the worst in every way as far as you're not expecting it. We are people of faith, but at the same time, we're not going to be caught off guard when the devil is the devil and demons are demons, and we have to walk our faith life. So
we're talking about atmosphere, and we're talking about music, and we're talking about preparation. Listen to the physiological impact that music can have on you. It impacts your brain chemicals. Music can release neurotransmitters and hormones such as dopamine that can trigger emotional reactions. Have you ever listened to music, had an emotional reaction.
Yes.
It can help your memory, which
Yes.
is crazy. Music can
Yeah.
help your memory. It helps your brain structure, helps your blood flow. It regulates your heart rate. Listening to music regulates your heart rate. It regulates your breathing
That's
rate.
so good.
It decreases stress hormones by releasing cortisol into your body. It can elevate your mood.
Oh,
It can improve your sleep quality.
Yeah.
It decreases pain, decreases anxiety, mental alertness. Music can improve your mental alertness. Music.
This is crazy.
All of these things are medically studied, journaled. Physicians and researchers have studied. So we're talking about the atmosphere that music can have. It can have an atmosphere in your home, but also has an atmosphere in your head. Has an atmosphere
100%.
literally in the blood flow that goes to your heart.
Yeah.
People that listen to music while in the hospital recover like crazy faster than people that don't listen to music.
Mm-hmm.
So the impact that music can have on all these atmosphere realms of our life is really staggering to me.
Oh yeah, people use music to control their mood.
Yeah.
And I think of this like one cartoon skit that I saw, this like famous, I'm not gonna say it, but this like famous, very famous cartoon man, to say it that way. And he was driving in the car, cartoon man, and he was driving in the car, and he had one song on, and he was bawling his eyes out, and then another and then Happy by Pharrell comes on, and he's starts getting happy and jumping around and instantaneously. But that's what music is, and it's your atmosphere.
Right.
And just like anything else, you have to control what comes in you.
Well, also in that, back up a little bit, we got sidetracked on the atmosphere, which I love, but music is also a form of communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like God created it for us to communicate to him, but and that's when I started, when we embraced earlier, I hadn't seen you in a little bit, so I gave you a big old hug, and I don't even think I greeted Josh because we were in the middle of doing something, so shalom.
We're not Jewish.
I don't know why that came up, but
just
it was
thought I'd
funny.
clear the room there.
Yeah. Or like a good friend of ours, Shalomi, my homie.
Woo!
Anyways,
keeping that in.
It's my point is the communication. We didn't come in and go, how thou art day to day, the Lord blesseth you and keepeth you in all of your ways, right? No, God doesn't want us to be corny Christians.
Come on.
Yeah.
He wants us to communicate, right? When we talk, of course, in our conversation, God comes up all the time because God's at the forefront of our lives. But at the same time, I like the Red Wings, so that's probably going to come out, right?
Right.
Jude does music, likes Pop Funkos, likes weird cartoons and shows, and that's what's going to come out because we're human. We talk about our day. And of course, God's going to come out in that because we talked to God today and we studied and but at the same time, it's so God
okay
doesn't
to be a
want
person.
us to just constantly be that communication with him in that music, right? Worship doesn't have to be on in every environment, which is why I believe he allowed music like Jude. Jude talks about his life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Jude doesn't say Jesus, 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 but his life speaks Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, he might not have the word Jesus in it, but if you listen to his music and a lot of others, I'm just saying Jude because he's sitting here.
Mm-hmm.
But if you listen to his music, it's communication. It's like he said, it's his life story. If you read this Bible right here, like Jude said earlier, these are people's stories. It's Paul talking about his life to other people. He's saying, this is what happened to me. You read the Gospels. It is the story of their life as they walked with Jesus. And that's what we are. This is the story of our life as we walk with Jesus.
Yeah, it's definitely very interesting, too, because if I were to write a love poem to my wife, people would celebrate it. If I were to write a love song to my wife, we get out the holy water and the crucifix. And I think it's just a mindset that has been to run away from, like, and I think it's a good protective mindset, and I obviously understand it, because there are very few people that have done what I've done, and it, like, well, at least for a while, I mean, I'm going to say it this way, when I started doing it, everyone was like, he is slipping into sin, and he is going off the deep end, and oh boy, see you later, Jude. And it was just because there was this repeated history of people that would do that, and all, like, they would just fall off because it was all about them in so many different ways.
And I think kind of go full circle to where we started. Where did that slip first start? Satan is the first example of a person who started with, and you talked about authenticity. I love that you talk about authenticity.
Good.
That was
when
good.
We're authentically...
I snuck an energy drink here.
When Lucifer was authentically who he was created to be, he was an instrument that glorified God.
Yeah.
When he no longer was authentically who God created him to be, he traded in the authenticity for a counterfeit.
Yeah.
The moment that he went counterfeit
really good.
is the moment of his fall.
Yeah.
So each and every one of us have an authentic call of God on the inside of us. I believe if you're breathing, there's an authentic call that God has put on the inside of you. If you trade that for a counterfeit, you're heading in the direction of fall. And I think that's why there's this long track record of musicians that have come off the rails, because they traded in their authenticity for counterfeit. When you are authentically you and I'm authentically me, although we're both musicians, what comes out of us is a little bit different.
Very different, yeah.
But
in a good way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And go ahead.
And you said this earlier, there's no less of a mandate on your life to be authentically you than there is on me. And when you go full steam ahead with what God called you to do, and I go full steam ahead with what God called me to do, and you go full steam ahead, incredible things happen, because we're being who God made us to be, with Christ at the center of our lives. And there's this awesome verse. It's in Matthew 23:26. It says, "First cleanse the inside of the cup, and then everything that comes out of that cup will be clean."
Ooh.
Good.
We're talking about atmosphere. We're talking about the way that you were raised. We're talking about your home. We're talking about what comes into us. If we keep the inside of our cup clean and we're authentically who God created us to be, we don't trade in the call for the counterfeit.
Yeah.
Everything that comes out of that cup, because Christ is what fills this cup.
100%.
Well, it's where all blessings come from.
Everything will be clean.
I think the main protection for not going off the beaten path is submission to leadership. And I like to drive this into everybody.
What word was that?
Submission. Which submission means to do something when you don't want to do it, and
to submit your life.
And I submit my life to my father and my pastor or my grandpa. And I think every person, and Josh can agree with me, every person.
Maybe.
I agree.
I
don't know what you're about to say, but I agree.
Yeah, I think every person that has ever fallen off, well, like all of the musicians that we've talked about, all of anyone that has ever fallen away from the church has just stopped submitting their life. And I tell people this all the time. If my grandpa ever told me to do something else, I am submitting my life to God, because he is my pastor, he's my shepherd, and he has the responsibility of me, and I'm not going to move away from that, and I'm not going to stop listening to that, because I see in my dad's life, it has only blessed him to submit, and it's only blessed me to submit. I already have so many proven track record of that. And so everyone that has ever fallen away chose to be their own God instead of submitting to their leadership. And I think that's the key factor. And I think that's the key factor that has allowed me to stay as strong as I am. There's been, when I was 17, I never wanted to move to Nashville. I wanted to move to Nashville so bad, and I wanted, it was just like a desire in my heart. Like, I really want to be down there. I had so many friends down there. Still to this day, I have so many friends in Nashville. Half of my groomsmen live in Nashville, and I love them. It's who I work with the most. But I can't walk away from the church here. because this church is such a foundation for me spiritually, and that's what's most important in life. And like I know the most important things that I do are being submitted to my pastor in my church, and being a husband to my wife, and then being the father of my future children.
Amen.
Those are the most important things I do. Nothing that I do in music no song that I write will ever be better than being a good father to my kids, or being a good husband to my wife, or being a good son to my father, or a good grandson to my grandfather. And so if I could write the most incredible song ever, and then people will, and then do crazy things, and people look at me like that's a bad man. But I could write terrible music and then be a great father, all that, and be a great Christian, and people look at me and say that's a good man. And I want to be a good man. I don't want to just be a great musician. I'm not going to say his name, but there's a huge man in the news right now, you probably know what I'm talking about, that has one of the most successful musicians to ever exist, is a billionaire, and came out as being dirty, and no one's looking at him saying, wow, that's a great man.
Right.
Even though he has $1 billion worth of music success, they're looking at him like, well, that guy's insane. And so even people that aren't Christians look at him and say he's not a great man.
Right.
It doesn't matter how successful he is. It doesn't matter anything of that. And I think what I want to be, I want people to look at me when I die. I want people to say he was a good man and he followed God, and he was a man after God's own heart. And I think that's what's most important in life. And so, and I even tell my wife that when she's figuring out what she wants to do in her life, I'm like, yeah, it's great, God's gonna guide you, but the most important thing is, just being, starting to be prepared to be a mother for our kids when that time comes, and being a wife, and being submitted to the church, and everything else is gonna come. Because those three things that I listed are the most important things, more than anything else. And I just see this as a responsibility that God's given me. And if God calls me somewhere else in the future, he does. But I tell my wife all the time, I mean, she moved from Las Vegas, big city, to Midland, Michigan, huge city, and all kinds of stuff, all kinds of Chipotles and Chick-fil-A's. And
he's faithing those in right now.
Hey, man. That's been out in the mission field. That's been the hardest part of Midland, Michigan, is no Chipotle for me. But sorry, I got sidetracked on thinking about food right now. No, but I tell her, I was like, God has to pull me out of this, out of Midland. I'm not going anywhere else unless God pulls me out of Midland, because this has been the most important thing.
Well, and you laid a foundation here now. Not only have we for you, I'm not bragging on me. It just is. Just like Josh has got, he's got an adult child, and then, 2 others that are not adult children. However, all above double digits. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But you are laying he's starting to get his beard's actually looking kind of sad. I don't know what happened. It used to be when we first met him, it was this big epic beard.
Oh, you mean smaller?
That's what I mean.
It's a lot of work.
It's
to
getting
maintain
smaller.
It's more distinguished now.
That level of grandeur. It's a lot of work.
Jude just called you distinguished.
That's okay.
Anyways,
that's a great word.
we as fathers
Don't burgle.
We as fathers, we laid down a foundation, right?
Yeah.
For our children, and now Jude's laying down a foundation. But my point to say that is, in that foundation being laid, all of the blessings in Jude's life have come because he's honored. Yeah. He has stayed planted.
Right.
And so I'm not going to give up a bunch of stuff coming in the future, but all of the Nashville dream that he had, a lot of that's coming to place. It's, he may end up being able to he's going to probably have a home there soon and back and forth.
I might be part-time there, but like he's saying is, and that's after
I guess
a lot
I can't say what I was saying. Jude, go ahead and say what I was saying.
I don't want to cut you off. I'm going to be respectful.
No, you already
to my
did.
father.
Go for
it. All right.
Yeah, we'll just
said so.
We'll just sip and listen.
Yeah, guys, listen to me.
I think you just burgled.
I burgled my moment for sure. But
I'm not trying to burgle your moment. I'm very
you,
sorry. I'm just wired up right now.
You are. I love it.
No, but I think any of my success that I have is and like what he's saying, like anything that I've been allowed to have and given, and is because of my dad submitting to my grandpa and my grandpa submitting to Jesus. And I know for a fact that I'm just like, what I have done is awesome and is what I should, it should be doing, obviously, but at the same point, the level of my blessing is 3x because of my dad has made it. My grandpa is 1, my dad is 2, and then me is 3. So I'm being blessed, but it's because my grandpa has submitted his entire life to it. He turned his life around from where he was, and he tells his testimony all the time. And then now my dad, since he was, as my grandpa says, old enough to be in, out of diapers, has been right by my grandpa's side, and he's had lots of opportunities to not be, and lots of tasteful opportunities to not be. And even as a kid, there was there was times where I didn't see my dad for a month, or I didn't, and there was always a trip planned. I don't know, there's things you remember as a kid. There was always a trip to Israel planned on my birthday every year from age 3 to 14. So my dad missed all of those birthdays. He definitely made up for it, let's be honest.
I was going to say,
I'm pretty happy.
I don't think you were,
I will say this is I'm pretty happy that happens sometimes, because I would get an extra birthday blessing. Sorry for missing your birthday once again. Praise God.
Well, and now the last 10 years, even though we haven't been to Israel, it's been the
Gatlinburg.
Yeah, the straight talk in Gatlinburg.
There's always something, and
haven't been to a Jude birthday in a long
time. He always makes up for it. Let's be very clear. But I say that to say there are things that I've had to sacrifice and lose my dad and my grandpa on, and there's been very few times where I've just been able to actually sit down with my grandpa and talk to him, just because he is obviously on the go always. But I have not had the normal grandpa experience, and I've definitely not had the normal father experience by any means. And I've had to sacrifice it, just like how my dad talks about. He had to sacrifice his dad.
Right.
And honestly, I think all of that just is, I wouldn't change anything of it, to be honest, because I think that I lived the greatest childhood ever to exist ever. And I think a lot of it is because of my mom and dad. And because of my grandpa,
we laid the foundation down, right? I was the same way. I grew up with grandpa, traveling full time and building a ministry, building a legacy, building a church, building a traveling ministry, preaching 300 to 350 times a year. And so I sacrificed not only for our church, because we have a good sized church, but on top of that, all of the other churches that had him. And I was the same way, Pat, I can't tell you the last time my dad was home on my birthday. My dad was a 1,000,000-mile flyer by the time I was 10 years old. We didn't always have an aircraft. And when we'd fly overseas, and I remember a couple of times, the big thing on if we flew on my birthday, which I did 10 times a year. My dad always got upgraded. When you're a 1,000,000-mile flyer, triple, quadruple, triple gillion, platinum, gold times 78, status.
Nice.
You get upgraded. So he would fly first class, and because he'd get upgraded to that. I remember one time on my birthday, though, I got to fly first class, and I was like, whoa, this is awesome. Cool. It was before I had, status. Now, of course, I don't have my own aircraft. I have a bus.
Praise the Lord.
And Jude's saying praise the Lord because he travels and has status, too, so he gets the upgrade every once in a while. Or our excitement, the free baggage.
Yeah.
But anyways, all that to say is it is a sacrifice, and I sacrificed my childhood for others, not for myself and not for my dad. I sacrificed my dad so that others would be blessed and taken care of and healed, and Doc did so much stuff for other pastors. He began pastoring other pastors that wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for my dad, visiting them. So like Jude saying, I knew where my blessing came from.
Oh yeah,
I'm very blessed. My family's blessed. My kids are way more blessed, and not from us. They're way more blessed and have way more, influence and just crazy things that happen to them randomly because of their sacrifice. And I remember, just a quick story on we kind of moved to sacrifice, which, we bring a sacrifice of praise. So this all ties together, and we'll wrap up
nice
here. But yeah, thank you. I'm pretty good at that. Not like High School Never Ends or $1 Million or anything like that.
I won't steal this
those
point
tie-ins.
too. You can go ahead.
Not those tie-ins, but no, I remember one time Josh and Jude might remember this. I mean, he'll remember it, but maybe not the front story. But we were out in California on vacation, but around all of our vacations, of course, is ministry, right? Yep. Like you meet with pastors, you go to church, you do that. So the kids say, "Oh, we're going on vacation," and I'm like, "Well, sort of."
No, I remember all my friends are like, "You go on so many vacation trips. Like, wow, you guys are really like that's crazy. Why are you guys not going on so many vacations?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I go to California, I go to Florida, I go to Texas, I go to wherever, and I sit in a hotel room and wait." And wait till church, and then we go to church, and we might see the beach.
Inside of churches and the inside
we might see the beach and the drive to the church.
Yeah, I was going to say, the beach is like a 20-minute.
Oh, look at that. I see it way over there. That's awesome.
Hey, that's how I saw the Eiffel Tower for the first time. I went to France for the weekend because Grandpa had to preach. Anyways, we were in California, and I told the kids, hey, we're going to do a couple things. We got to do some ministry. And we got tickets for Lakers game. It was on a Sunday night, and the kids were super stoked about it. But there was this family that was hurting, and they knew we were in town, and so they said, hey, can we do lunch or dinner or something? And I had preached that morning, so we couldn't do it that. But we said, hey, we're staying at some friends of ours, the Flores house. Really good. They're really family to us, and that's Jude's, Mexi grandma and Mexi grandpa. But we were staying there, and we said, hey, why don't you come over to the house? And they made dinner for us, and they had little kids about Jude and Malachi's age. And I said, boys, I know you guys have, Lakers, tickets tonight, but it would be a really, really good blessing if you would stay and help bless this family that was in need. And they were younger. I think Jude, I don't know, maybe you were 12, 13, 14 years old when this was happened. And of course, they're like, well, we're going to go to the Lakers game.
I said, nope, peace.
Correct.
I'm seeing Kobe.
And I said, well, I understand, but, I want you guys to pray about it. And if you decide to go, that's fine. We'll send you with somebody. But I really want you to pray about you guys staying and helping this family. They're really hurting. They're wanting to quit. I think one was suicidal, and the kids were having issues and stuff like that. And
to put it in perspective, me and Malachi, just to say how big of a deal this was for us kids, is that me and Malachi lived and breathed basketball, and the Pistons have sucked since we were 2 years old. And so
I don't think they're any different.
No, yeah, they are bad.
They're breaking records. They're most losses ever. Sorry.
No, it's actually great.
You missed the golden era of the Pistons by about 10 years.
Yes.
Well, it was 2004. It was Chauncey, so I was 3 years old, which is, anyways. So we've never been fans of the Pistons for obvious reasons.
Lakers and
my brother. I mean, we were both huge Kobe Bryant fans growing up, and that was a great golden era of Kobe Bryant still back then. Right. And so we wanted to. Obviously, it was a huge deal for us even to get tickets. Correct. Obviously, they were nosebleeds. Obviously, all the different stuff, and it's great.
Why do you say obviously there were nosebleeds? Come on, I got you got good tickets. Upper bowl, 3 from the top. You can see the whole court.
Exactly.
It's this.
Kobe down there.
The court's this big. Come on, you can see everything.
Yeah, you can see the whole floor. It was great.
That was my selling point, Josh.
Obviously.
Yeah, that's what he sold us on for sure. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm saying all that to say I'm extremely grateful, and I know there's people that grew up even without their dads at all or without their grandpas at all, and so even getting any of my family is incredible, and I'm not saying any of that.
Mute his mic.
Oh, okay. I'm just saying there was a very it was
and he
very
keeps
big
talking.
to us.
He keeps talking.
Okay. I love it. I love it. He built up my lame story.
Up your point.
My lame story is now going to be awesome.
Burgle my point.
My point
Burgle
was burgled.
is taking over.
But we were sitting there, and the kids finally, I think they went and huddled in the corner, and they said, Dad, you're right. We're going to give our seats away. So we'll get blessed for doing that, and we'll stay and help. And it was awesome. We had a great night. I think they were there for like 8 hours, and just the boys. There wasn't like they're 12, 13, 10 years old. They're not ministering to the other kids.
They're not laying hands on them. They're not prophesying over them.
But just the fact that they're in the room, they're hanging out. They didn't have friends. They're playing video games. They're in a good environment, right? That's what I'm talking about. We're talking about environment here, right? Atmosphere. And so they're in that atmosphere. They're being loved on as we loved on the family. And I remember it was like they had left maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and we're sitting at the Floreses. They have this they're a huge family. So at this particular house, they had this big, huge, maybe 12 or 14 person table, right? Like I just remember it being big. And we're sitting at it, and that family had left, and the Flores family, great family again, they were there helping and everything. And I remember Pastor David gets a phone call, and I'm like, it's literally maybe a few minutes to 11 or a few minutes after 11. And I was like, odd, like you don't get a phone call at 11 o'clock at night usually. And he answers the phone, and I'm hearing the one side, right? Like, and it's, hey, this is Pastor David. Yeah, my grandsons, or I think he nephews at the time. He's like, I think, my nephews are in town. Oh, really? Well, let me ask him. And he literally puts the phone down, and he's like, hey, OKC is in town. That's who played the Lakers. And every once in a while, they allow family of the bus drivers that drive them to come down and meet the players. And so he's like, you guys want to go meet the OKC players? And
Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden.
Yes. And so, of course, they're like, well, yeah. And they're like, well, be here at 8:30 tomorrow morning, yada, yada. And so they're freaking out, right? They get to meet these. And so they get there, and I'm going somewhere with all of this, right? Like this is how God works when you sacrifice. Mm-hmm. So they not only now get to go say hi to them, high five, whatever, right? And so they get there, and there's only maybe a dozen people, right? Because it's not an open event.
No, and they were just going to get on the bus.
Literally,
and we're standing outside their bus.
Right.
Like
right by the door.
Yeah, 10 and 12-year-old with.
And so,
gear.
They go. They have a 20-foot walk, right? And so they're explaining it, and they're like, "Hey, listen, all they're gonna do is wave. They might come by and give you a high five. They're not gonna do autographs, yada yada." They said, especially right now, Russell Westbrook is focused. He had a couple of big awards happening. He said he's gonna come out with headphones on. He probably won't look at you. He might give you a piece or whatever, but he is going to get on the bus. So don't be offended.
Yeah, keep your hopes low.
Yeah. And so we have mutual friends to KD, and so we had contacted those mutual friends. And so KD actually came out and spent, 4 or 5 minutes with the boys, signed some stuff, got some pictures, and that was cool. And so already they're seeing this blessing, right?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And so the other players come by, high five. I think they got an autograph or two. And just like they said, Russell Westbrook came out walked straight to the bus, just pieced everyone out, took 1 or 2 steps on the bus, literally spun back around, stepped off the bus, and went right to my boys.
Wow.
And said, "What are you guys doing?" kind of thing. And they were like, "Oh my gosh, what do you mean, what are we doing?" And he totally stopped, got a picture, and signed the jerseys that they had. Literally talked to nobody else,
and
turned right back around and walked on the bus.
Which is crazy.
And of course the boys come home and they're like, "Oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah." And I literally stopped and said, "Do you know why that happened?" And they were like, "Because Pastor Dave's so awesome," and because
Which
he is. It was Pastor Dave's brother was the bus driver, to loop the story together, and I said, "No, that all happened because you sacrificed for God and for this family, and God turned it all back around, and now look at what God did. He took a game would have been awesome, but you wouldn't have met anybody. You wouldn't have got a picture. You wouldn't have said hi. You wouldn't have got an autograph."
And I would take the hi and the autograph over the game.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
Cool. I mean, because
especially your seats were so awesome.
Oh yeah, they're the best.
And so, those sacrifices,
Obviously.
we can go on and on. Jude got blessed with championship game tickets. It's from a pastor in Florida that literally just called and said, "Hey, isn't your son a Miami Heat fan?" Back when he was a Miami Heat fan.
Still am.
And they were like, I was like, "Yeah," or Trish actually was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Hey, we've got these tickets. Do you want them?" And she's like, "Well, when is it? Like tomorrow or 2 days from now?" And it was like when they hoisted the banner and handed out the rings, and we were like, we were like, "Well, yeah." Well, we're thinking, when you get tickets, you're like they're cool, but no, these were like
almost on the floor.
A few rows up, just given. We're in Chicago one time eating lunch, and no joke, one of our partners that are in the Chicago area called and said, "Hey, I heard you're in Chicago." And we're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Hey, where are you right now?" And I was like, "Well, we just sat down for lunch." He's like, "I'm 10 minutes away. I'll be there. I've got something for your kids." And so we're like, "What in the world?" And so, again, Jude being a big Heat fan at the time, they both loved basketball. It didn't matter what game, right? You could go. We'd be anywhere. We'd be at the worst,
anything but
place.
WNBA. We're there.
X that out.
No, keep it.
Edit. Quick edit. Anyways.
I'll go on the record. Don't worry.
We're in Chicago, and this guy comes in and literally sits down at our lunch table with our family, right? And he slides this envelope across to my boys, and they open it up, and Jude especially, he was like, what in the world?
It's like a drug deal. Chicago. He just was like.
It was weren't they on a big streak? Like they were on a 23-game win streak or something like that.
Miami,
24-game
Miami
was
in Chicago.
And they were playing in Chicago, and he literally hands up. And same thing. These are not dad seats, right? These aren't like the $74 special where it comes.
Also been blessed and has gotten us better seats.
Oh yeah. This is back when back when Dad wasn't blessed, right? This is back when they were younger and we didn't have money or blessings yet.
And we've always been grateful for anything. Let's be
of course. That's why we can make fun of it now.
But, 100%.
But he slides them off, and this same thing. It's like 10 rows off.
Wow.
Great seats where my kids and we'd ask. Right, God just blessed us. One more story of this, and we're saying this for a reason because it's sacrifice, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's atmosphere and sacrifice, and because they have sacrificed all of this, they've been blessed. Malachi was at they were at a Pistons. What was Lakers, right?
Yeah, Malachi's Lakers. Yeah.
So Malachi liked the Lakers, so they were in Detroit, Piston Lakers game, and Trish. It was just her and Malachi, and I don't think it was Lakers. I think it was actually Cleveland because Mom's a big Cleveland fan. It doesn't matter. Whoever it was.
Yeah, I know.
They weren't bad seats, but they're at the top of the middle, right? So they're not they're not the best, but they're not the original. We have to, you know, sit way up top seats. But Malachi and Mom were up there, and I think the reason why they got picked out partially was because they weren't in Pistons gear, they were in Cavs gear or whatever, you know. But this, my wife Trish was saying, like, this guy in a suit kind of was looking around, and he came, you know, across the bench, and he came up like, you know, the 15 or 20 rows up, and they were sitting there on the aisle, and he turned to Malachi and was like, hey, I'm pretty sure it was the Cavs, but because I think LeBron was on the team at the time, but
my mom's a huge LeBron fan.
She's a big LeBron fan, so big Cavs fan.
It started when I was a Miami fan, so and then she just carried on.
And then, like, they said, you know, are you Cavs fan or Pistons fans? And they said, well, we're Cavs fans. You know, we have the jersey on or whatever. And they were like, turned to Malachi, and they're like, how would you like to come sit on the bench?
On the bench?
And Trish is like, hold on, I'm the Cavs fan. And he's like, is that all right, Mom? And Mom's like, I mean, sure. So they literally take him all the way down, past all of those people, security, all that. And he's sitting on the bench kind of by himself, like just sitting in the chair. And Trish has a picture of him, like, just
his feet probably aren't even touching
probably
the ground.
weren't even touching. And he's just sitting there, and like all the people are. And then the same guy comes by, and he's like, "Hey, has any of the players come by and like give you a high five?" And he's like, "No, but I've just been sitting here, just taking it all in." He's like, "All right, don't worry." He's like, "Do you have a marker?" And he's like, "For what?" And he's like, "Well, I mean, you want him to sign your jersey, don't you?" And he was like, yeah. He's like, well, when they come over here, just pull your jersey off or whatever, and here's a marker. And so sitting, I can't make this stuff up.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
He's sitting, you can't buy this.
No, yeah.
And he's sitting on the bench, and they come one by one, and he literally gets, you know, signatures of all of these people while sitting on the bench. And then they go, and he's like, okay, he's like, enjoy the game, go back up with your mom. And so, like, Malachi runs back up with complete
out of breath by the time he gets up there, because it's so many steps all the way
signed
up, back up,
by these people. Why does this stuff happen? Because of the sacrifice, right? It doesn't happen because we don't know anybody in that in that industry. We don't know anybody in that. They didn't pick him out because,
and like you said, you can't buy this fancy ticket package where you can sit on the bench with the players.
I mean, you can buy the sit next to the players at, you know, $20,000 a seat per game, but like, it happened because first I sacrificed, and then I sacrificed my kids, and my kids sacrificed their dad, and that was God's way to say, hey, I know the little things in your life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
I know that you're sacrificing the big things, but God cares about the little things. And if it was just basketball, a simple thing, and that made them happy and that blessed them, God did all of that. It wasn't me. We didn't, you know what I mean? Like those three instances that we just said, God orchestrated those because of their sacrifice for no other reason.
Yeah, my favorite thing to say about that, like the just little phrase that I tell people is like, obedience creates space for miracles. Yep. And so when you stay obedient to God, obedience creates space for miracles. And so when you stay obedient to your calling and what God wants for you, just things happen. You can't even explain it, and it's just favor. And so like I was saying earlier, I don't just have favor of one generation. I have the third generation favor, and that builds. Just like how there are generational curses, there's generational blessings.
100%.
And that's what I am so grateful, and I can't believe.
And your blessings should be bigger and greater than mine.
And my kids will be even better as well, and it's just going to be a generational blessing, and that's something that I'm not going to take lightly, and it's a responsibility.
Awesome. And as you're obedient to that, your kids get to reap the 4X.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
That.
They'll be better than anything.
Yep. And one day you may sit on the other side of the table like your dad is and say, "Oh my gosh, my kids are way more blessed than I ever was."
And like that, you know what I mean? Like some parents get upset or jealous. I was, that's the way my dad was to me, right? Like he created space for me to be me, right? I'm not Mark Barclay. I don't preach like Mark Barclay. I have Mark Barclay in me, but I don't preach like Mark Barclay. I don't talk like Mark Barclay. But breathe and sleep Mark Barclay because he put it in me. And that's what I did with my kids, right? Even down to voting. We just voted this year, right? And Jude, this might be his second presidential vote, but this was Malachi and Maddie's, first and Alani's first presidential. And they were like, well, who are you voting for? And I'm like, that's not how we do this. You're an adult. So I'm going to lay out the foundation of what we believe, and then you choose that.
You make the decision.
Yeah, you make the decision. And that's what we do as good parents, is we raise them up, and then they have to move
That was
on.
something I was always super grateful for with my parents, is that I've seen in a lot of parents' life, it's the classic do it because I said so. And obviously I still heard that as every other kid. It's like, well, why? Well, because I said so, shut up, smack in the mouth, as
I said many of times when they were 8.
But the majority, that's always on the 5th why, not the first why anyways. But if we always knew why my parents were disciplining us, or why we did the things that we did. And that's the whole purpose. Then I think that's something that I'm super grateful that I'm going to be able to, when I become a father, is we don't just do things because we do things. We know why we do things.
Right.
And so that's the biggest, I would say, like, success that I think my parents ever did, was I was never in the unknown when it came to why is my dad doing this. And he would always go right back to the Bible, or right back to, and I mean, it was pretty much always the Bible. He would go back to, we do this because God said to do this, and here's where God said to do it, and this is how God said to do it.
Well, we lived, it's back to WYSIWYG. We lived the same lifestyle at home as we did everywhere else.
100%.
Right? Like, that's what I taught, and that's what my kids do that I can see so far. I'm not in Jude's home all the time, but when I walk into Jude's home and how I see him husband his wife, and his wife, her husband, is that we're the same. We don't, what we are in, and that's what we started, that you can attest to, right? Mm-hmm. You've been in my home, not just for spiritual events. You've been in my home for dinner. You've been in my home for parties. You've been in my home to watch whatever, TV or fights or whatever. And we are the same no matter where we're at. And that's what you need to be. This opens up we're starting to close on the miracle side of thing. And that's kind of what I want to talk about in our next podcast. So a little plug, next podcast, miracles. Ooh. Don't want to miss it. But I thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Jude didn't have a choice, but Josh did. And so I think we've started something good. So stick around. This has been awesome. Like, subscribe, send this to all of your friends and say, man, Jude did so much talking. You need to listen to this. But no, it was good stuff. I give my son a hard time, but
he burgled.
He did burgle a lot, but we love him. If you want to know why we're burgling a lot, look it up. According to the media crew, that is a real word. But again, like, subscribe, send this to everybody. This has been the Unashamed podcast, and check out the next one coming up in just a second.
Woo! That's good.
Sweet.